Howdy doody buckaroonies, and welcome back to another episode of Music Go Burr. In this video, I want to talk about Cardinal. Cardinal is a free and open source version of VCV Rack 2 that runs as a plugin inside of your DAW. It has many of the best modules from the VCV library, including hardware clones, and has all the same benefits of the VCV Rack 2 upgrade, and it's available for PC, Mac, and Linux for everybody to enjoy. In this video, I wanted to walk you through getting started with Cardinal and walk through your first couple of patches, including a basic synth patch, a sequencer patch to send MIDI out of Cardinal to other plugins or hardware in your session, and using Cardinal as a modular effect because that's a whole lot of fun. If you don't have Cardinal already, you can download it with the link down in the description to follow along as we go. Today's video is also sponsored by the folks over at Bux. I worked with them a little while ago on a digital marketing campaign where they sent me all of their books, and I gotta say, these are really good. Although I would love to make more modular tutorials on the channel here, with the average watch time being somewhere between 5 and 8 minutes for a video, it is exceptionally hard for me to make a video that I think is up to my own standards in that sort of time frame with something like modular, which gets pretty hairy pretty quick. Patch and Tweak, which is the Bux book on the world of modular synthesis and in a broader sense synthesis in general, covers all the basics of getting started with modular and even walks you through creating patches and some creative ideas to try on your own and explore. I think the best part about this book though is that it also features some additional free resources for VCV Rack and VCV Rack 2 made by the one and only Omri Cohen that follow along with what's happening in the book so you can explore and play with the concepts in real time at your own pace. Patch and Tweak is available now. If you want to check it out for yourself and learn more about modular, you can find that with the link down in the description below. If you're into reading about this sort of stuff in general though, I think my favorite book from this series is actually Push, Turn, Move. It's a book about the user interface and user experience design of software and hardware, and it's probably one of the most interesting books I've read in a while. So if you're into this sort of stuff, definitely check this one out. So with our books, or Bux, in hand, let's dive into the world of Cardinal. All right, so to begin, let's right-click and delete everything. So we're first gonna need to add some modules to get information in, out of, and through Cardinal to allow it to communicate and do all the things. So we'll right-click to load the module list, and right away you'll see there are a ton of modules inside of Cardinal, including sequencers, oscillators, effects, and all sorts of other just really, really cool stuff, including ports of most of the mutable instruments modules, which are some of the most popular ones in the world of hardware. With the brand, we can sort for distro, and this is where we're gonna find these sort of utility modules that are gonna allow us to get things started. What we're gonna need to start things off is a MIDI module, allowing us to play our keyboard or controller and send the MIDI into Cardinal, and then we're gonna need an audio output to take the audio from Cardinal out into the DAW. So in the distro brand, we're gonna grab the host MIDI module, right-click again, and grab the host audio module. So we'll space these out, maybe something like this, just so everything is nice and clear. Now we're ready to get started patching. Let's right-click again, and instead of sorting by brand, let's sort by tags. I'm first going to find an oscillator of some kind. That's the thing that's gonna make noise. I think we'll go with the macro oscillator. This is based on braids from mutable instruments, and it's really useful because it has so many different modes and sound types. Next, we're gonna need an amplifier, which is going to allow us to control the level of signal, and an envelope generator to control the amplifier. So let's right-click again. We'll right-click and go to voltage controlled amplifier. I think we'll grab this VCA here from VCV. This way we can have a visual representation of everything. Right-click again and go to tags, and we'll go to envelope generator. I think we'll use the Bog Audio ADSR just because this one is nice and simple and should give us a visual of everything. Finally, no synth is complete without a filter. So once again, right-click tags, and we're gonna go to filter, and let's get the liquid filter, also based on a mutable instruments module, and we've got everything spaced out, and we can start wiring this up to create our first patch. Working from left to right, we have our input information, our oscillator, our ADSR or envelope generator, our VCA or voltage controlled amplifier, our filter, and our audio output. So we're gonna connect these in order because this sort of works sequentially. First up in the oscillator, we need to tell it what pitch to play, because if I play something right now, nothing happens. So this in modular is measured in volts per octave. So we have a V/octave here, and we can see we have V/octave here, meaning volts per octave. So we can wire this to our oscillator volts per octave input, and we're good to go, right? No, we need to now wire this out. If we wired the oscillator directly out, this happens. And it's just going to play forever and ever and ever. And this is where the VCA or voltage controlled amplifier comes in. What we'll do is take the output of our oscillator and feed this to the input of our VCA. But right now, if I sent this out, once again, it's gonna play forever and ever and ever, and that's because we haven't wired up our envelope generator. If I move this over a little bit, you'll see down here we have a gate input, and a gate in the world of modular is what allows something to open or close. It's a gate, and it's like a square wave. It's either on or off. It's on when I'm holding down a key, and when I let it go, it's off. Looking over at our host MIDI module, I can see we have a gate output. So we'll wire that gate output to the gate input of the ADSR here, and the output of that to the CV or control voltage input of the amplifier. Very quickly, CV or control voltage is really what makes modular so interesting, and it's anything flowing through these cables. In the world of a regular synthesizer, you have sort of a fixed architecture in the way things flow or work. And in modular, you can connect these things really in any way you see fit, meaning every time you build a modular patch, you're essentially building your own custom instrument from the ground up. In this case, we're using CV or control voltage to control the output or level of the amplifier. So you can see now it's already set down to 0. If I wire this out, no more infinite noise. But once I play a note, we can see that it's opening up because of this gate, and we could shape the gate with the ADSR. So we could increase the attack. And we see it goes on. If I release it, we'll see it takes some time to release. We could shorten the attack and lengthen the release. We could add a decay phase with a low sustain and a long release. And that is CV. How far you take this idea is entirely up to you. But for now, let's take the output of the amplifier here and instead wire it to the input of our filter, and we'll take the low pass 4 output and feed that into our DAW. Now we have things like resonance, frequency, and FM for the filter, so we can use this to create some filter movement. And we've built our first patch. Let's right click again and go to tags, and I'm gonna sort for oscillators, and I'm gonna grab the Bog Audio LVCO here, which is a little tiny oscillator that also acts as an LFO or low frequency oscillator in slow mode. So let's drop that down and we can see we've got a sine wave here. So let's take the output of this oscillator, now acting as an LFO, and feed that to the FM input of our filter. So let's drop the filter cutoff down. Right now, nothing is happening, but if I increase the amount of CV modulation, or the speed, we can now control the filter cutoff with the output of this oscillator. For a bit more fun, let's duplicate this oscillator and bring it back. We'll take the output and feed this into the FM or frequency mod, and I'm gonna set this to be a ramp wave. So we'll click over here and we can increase the amount of FM. So now this ramp wave LFO is going to change the speed of this sine wave LFO. Let's increase the FM depth. Pretty cool. Now, why not grab another envelope here by duplicating this and use this to also control the filter cutoff to some degree. I'm gonna move this down to the second row, and let's right click and grab a mixer here. Go to tags, sort for mixer, and I'm gonna grab the, let's do just the quad VCA here. So we'll need our gate, so we'll grab the gate output from the host MIDI. I'm gonna feed the output of that to the input of this quad VCA, and I'm gonna feed the final output or the full mix into this FM, but you'll see it's being overtaken. So what we can do is change this connection to be input 2 and grab output 4 to feed this. This way our LFO is going to be controlled with this level on the mixer. And we can get a filter envelope with this input of the mixer. So let's drop the sustain down. Very cool, we've built a synth. Let's make this patch just a little bit more fun. I'm gonna duplicate this LFO one more time, and let's use the output of this to control the timbre of the macro oscillator here. I'm gonna change the mode of this maybe to something like wavetable, which should be somewhere around here. There we go. That way we're getting some movement to that wavetable. And why not use the output of the oscillator to also provide FM to the filter? That's maybe a little bit intense, so I'm going to duplicate the VCA here, and this way we have a control for this level. So I'm gonna put this into the input of the VCA and the output here, and use this to control the level of FM from the oscillator to the filter cutoff. And I think that's a pretty neat sound. Let's cap this off with a couple effects. Maybe we'll go for a granular effect. I don't think it's truly a modular patch, maybe without a bit of clouds thrown in. So let's put the output of the filter to the input of clouds, and then we'll get the left and right outputs here and start messing with clouds a bit to create some interesting granular-y stuff. Let's increase the output because this is getting pretty quiet. Maybe we could increase the attack here on the synth. And you've created your first modular synth patch. Cardinal can do all sorts of other cool stuff besides just making synth patches. So let's use it to make a generative sequencer and feed something like Arturia pigments with it. So I'm gonna grab all of these, right click and delete them. We'll right click again, go into the sort, brand, and distro here. What we're gonna need first is the host time. This is going to allow us to sync everything up to the DAW. We'll right click again and go to JW modules because Jeremy Wentworth makes life worth living, and grab something like the, let's do note sequencer 16 here. In Bitwig, I'm gonna add a new instrument after Cardinal here. So I'm gonna search for pigments and grab instrument pigments. Okay, wait for that to load. And let's just initialize pigments here with something nice and clean. To get this party started, we'll wire the volts per octave output to the host MIDI module and the gate output to the host MIDI module. So now this is going to pass the pitch and gate information out to the DAW. And you can see we can actually send some other messages generated within Cardinal here, like velocity, aftertouch, pitch bend, and mod wheel. So that's pretty cool. To get things going with the sequencer, I'm first gonna click random down here. This is gonna generate a random sequence. Maybe we'll do that so it starts with something. And now we're gonna need to hook up the host time to the note sequencer 16 to get things rocking and rolling. So first off, we need to give it a clock or tell it what tempo everything is playing at. So for this, I'm gonna feed the step output. Actually, let's do the beat output here into the clock. That way we'll get quarter notes. Then we're going to feed the playing output here into the restart input. This way it's going to play and hold it open and then restart when we replay everything. So let's give that a play and we should hear Pigments playing some stuff. Now let's stop and restart. And the sequencer has reset. After making a few quick tweaks to the Pigments patch to make something more interesting, I've now got this. But you can see we have more than one note triggering at certain times, but we're only getting one note out. So for this, we need to introduce polyphony. To do that, we can right click on a module. I'm gonna go to polyphony channels and set this to 8 and make sure that this is also feeding out 8 polyphony channels. Not every module in Cardinal supports polyphony, but if they do, you can right click and set the polyphony channels. So now let's give that another play and we should hear polyphony whenever more than one note occurs. Now, we can also see we have a random trigger input here, meaning it's going to re-randomize things whenever this input receives a trigger signal. So for that, let's right-click here and go to something like our clock modulators, where we can get something that's going to mess with the clock signal. Let's take this out. I'm gonna feed the beat output to the input here, and let's do a, I don't know, division here. Now, this should randomize every 3/2. So now we're getting generative sequences forever and ever from Cardinal feeding pigments. You can do this with whatever you want, and there are a lot of interesting sequencers inside of Cardinal to explore, so I'll leave that for you as a bit of a homework assignment. With all that out of the way, let's finally close things off by talking about using Cardinal as an effect in your DAW. So I'm gonna leave this patch running. This patch is going to drive pigments. I've already got a little bit of delay on there, but let's say we want to add something like clouds and, I don't know, maybe a moving filter to everything. So for that, in the session, we're going to need to add a new instance of Cardinal called Cardinal Effects, and we'll hit OK. And this comes pre-wired with everything ready to go to create an effect. So when it comes to effects with Cardinal, you can really delete all of these modules unless you need something that's synced to the host time, in which case you would leave the host time module here. So I'm actually going to right click and just delete all of these. Let's add some clouds and a filter. So I'm gonna right click, go to brand and go to audible instruments. Let's find clouds, which is right here. And let's grab a couple of filters. Let's grab the liquid filter. I'm going to duplicate that and let's go into oscillators. And I'm gonna grab the bog audio oscillator once again right here and just give myself a couple of LFOs to play around with for these filters. Disconnecting the host audio here, we have the outputs, so we can feed this into clouds here. So left to left, right to right. We'll take output left into input of filter 1 here, output right to input of filter 2 here. Let's do, oh, I don't know. Let's do just some band passes for everything, why not? So we're gonna feed the output of the band pass to host audio out left, and for this one, band pass to host audio out right. Let's feed the output of these LFOs to the input of FM for the filters. Let's drop the filter cutoff somewhere down around here, give ourselves a touch of resonance, set these both to slow mode, give them some different timings, and start messing with clouds. That actually sounds pretty cool, but I think maybe it just needs a little bit more glorious reverb. So let's right click, tags, and find ourselves a nice reverb. I think plateau is really the only real choice when it comes to reverb in VCV. Let's swap these outputs here. I'm gonna grab the left out, right out, feed the bandpass to left, other bandpass to right, and start messing with the reverb a little bit. And we've built an effect inside of Cardinal. Keep in mind that the Cardinal Effects also does accept MIDI, so you can use Cardinal Effects to design MIDI-controlled effects as well. It's really endless, and that is what makes modular so fascinating. All good things must come to an end, and I suppose that's the end of this video. A big thank you to Kim and the team over at Buick's for sponsoring today's video and making it possible. Patch and Tweak is out now. If you want to learn more about modular, I highly recommend this book, and be sure to go subscribe to Omri Cohen's channel as well if you want to learn more about modular and the world of VCV. It's a phenomenal channel you should absolutely check out. Of course, a huge thank you as well to the VCV Rack community, the developers behind VCV and all the modules, and the developer or developers behind Cardinal. It always gives me a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling in my giblets to know that tools like this are out there, free and accessible to everybody to play with and start creating with. And finally, a big thank you to you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, I hope you learned something, and as always, I hope this inspires you to get out there and make something awesome.